Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon's session on the circular economy in action. We'll just give folk 2 more minutes to join the room, and then we'll get underway. Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Douglas Simpson. I'm a senior advisor with ReLondon. Welcome to this afternoon's sessions on people, places and things, how the circular economy is being applied in action as part of our local authority theme day. Just a bit of housekeeping before we get underway. We've got 5 presentations today, really exciting presentations. Please do feed through your questions as we go through the sessions, and be sure to use the Q&A function, which is down the very bottom of your screen. If you hover across the very bottom, you'll get a Q&A icon there. Please don't use the chat because we won't see your questions. So please do use the Q&A function throughout, and then we'll get as many questions as we can fired through to the speakers. Without further ado, I'm going to now hand over to our chair, Victoria Lawson, to kick off the session. Thanks, Victoria.
Hi, welcome everyone. Welcome to today's session on circular economy in action. So I'm Victoria Lawson. I'm here because I'm the chair of the London Environment Directors Network. And working with ReLondon, today you're going to hear a range of case studies from a number of different boroughs who are working with neighbourhoods to make a shift to a circular economy, or who are doing some fantastic things around taking positive action within their own organisations and within their own operations. So the format of today's session, we're going to have a first session that's going to focus on circular economy in the community, and we've got 3 presentations. We'll then take a short Q&A, and that'll be followed then by the second session, which will be on circular economy in the local authority. We'll have 2 presentations for this, and that again will be followed by a short Q&A. So please do, as Doug said, use the Q&A function for any questions you might have. I'm hoping you're going to find the session today really enjoyable and informative. I've seen some of the slides already, look really interesting and innovative and exciting. So I just want to introduce our first 3 speakers. So we've got Cindy from the London Borough of Hounslow, Alexandra from Hackney Wick Community Development Trust, and then it'll be Anchor from Kensington and Chelsea. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Cindy from the London Borough of Hounslow.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cindy Gardner. I'm Head of Recycling, Circular Economy and Ward Improvements here at Hounslow Council. Doug has kindly offered to go through the slides, so you might hear me say, next slide, please, at each phase. So I want to introduce you to a project that we're doing in Hounslow. It's called the Heston Village Project. It is a holding name because we're yet to come up with a name that kind of demonstrates what we're trying to do in this project. So I'm going to run through a few slides with you. So this project is connected and in partnership with ReLondon, and we've partnered together to co-fund a demonstrator circular economy neighbourhood. And the idea is that with ReLondon, we will create a blueprint for local authorities to use to implement circular economy neighbourhoods. The image on the top left shows the project location within the borough boundary. Ealing to the north is shaded in blue. The central image is the overlap between our GLA Future Neighbourhood 2030 strategy area and our circular economy neighbourhood. Heston Village has a larger neighbourhood centre which allows for more concentrated and combined actions from infrastructure to services provision, and it also contains more amenities, which is why we've moved slightly to the right geographically from our GLA neighbourhood. Next slide, please. So the idea is that we want to create exemplar circular economy communities that combat climate change while creating greater community cohesion and boosting the local economy through skills and job creation and volunteering opportunities. So real bottom-up approach to green recovery, where communities, their citizens and their businesses are empowered through circular economy solutions to change their relationship with stuff. Through behavioural intervention, communities can consume and waste less by reusing, repairing, sharing and recycling more. Next slide, please. So as part of the future neighbourhood funding, LBH was granted £30,000 to develop a future neighbourhood 2030 strategy and action plan. And this will be used to feed into the wider low carbon and resilient neighbourhood programme. And it's really about considering a place-based approach. So the Heston project plays a fundamental role in our future neighbourhood strategy by developing the place where the circular economy is at its core. Next slide, please. So the needs that the project addresses, you'll all be familiar with these themes. With this circular economy demonstrator project, we'll be focusing on these needs: education, behaviour, a fair and just recovery, to ensure that we hear all voices throughout the process of decision making, and that there are true benefits for everyone that's involved in the outcomes. We want to promote skills and job opportunities, inclusion and diversity. Next slide, please. So what's the expected outcomes from this project? We need to achieve a systematic change. A neighbourhood will require interventions which deliver a broad range of outcomes. Interventions may cover several or all of the outcomes, but it's important for all chosen outcomes to be addressed through the programme of interventions. And a lot of these will be very familiar to you already. Next slide, please. So the project should have a broad material focus to assist with the aim of achieving systematic change. It's important that this demonstrator project does not become a pilot within a pilot. So the interventions selected will be well-known, established interventions which have been used before, but not necessarily delivered all at the same time within a defined area. So by grouping interventions together, our aim is to achieve a systematic change, a change that reaches all parts of the system, thus affecting general behaviour. Next slide, please. So to create an exemplar circular economy neighbourhood that combines combats climate change while creating greater community cohesion and boosting the local economy through skills and jobs creation, it's important that all sections of the community understand the aim from the outset and can play their part in that systematic change. So it's really critical that we engage with our citizens, with our businesses, and that the local authority plays a part. So when we talk about citizens, it's schools, it's community groups, it's faith groups, ambassadors. We have an environmental champion programme, and we want to work with businesses both large and small. And then we must show a link between the projects being delivered through various departments and adopt our one Hounslow approach. Next slide, please. So the ultimate goal is to establish a circular economy demonstrator neighbourhood, but how do we measure this and evaluate this? The Heston Village project needs a behavioural theory change, and this will help us to identify what needs to be measured and how to evaluate that and influence that. You know, we get very focused on measuring tonnage and measuring participation, but this is about a whole scale behavioural change. So we need to be very clear on what we need to manage, how we need to measure that and what the influences are. We can't simply look at the outcomes at the end of the project and infer that the project caused those changes, because there's too many unknowns about how it will work, as well as multiple possible influences and causation. So I know this is a very busy slide and we'll be sharing the slides afterwards. So hopefully you'll be able to get a flavour of what we're trying to measure in this project. Next slide, please. So the project idea started in February this year when the parties came together to discuss the opportunity to develop a circular neighbourhood. Since February, the project team has been researching the area and developing the monitoring and evaluation strategy. Implementation will start in September with co-design and co-delivery of the interventions and the engagement. And monitoring and evaluation will commence immediately and continue through the project to the end date of April 2024. There will be further evaluation in the following 6 months to finish in September 2024. Next slide, please. So just in summary, we're hoping to achieve a systematic change and use this demonstrator to prove a circular neighbourhood is possible, partnering and supporting everyone in the community to waste less, where repairing and sharing become the norm. Thank you.
Okay, so if we bring in Alexandra from Hackney Wick Community Development Trust.
Hi everybody, hopefully you can hear me. I'm going to share my screen now. I was inspired by what Cindy said. Wow, I mean, hugely inspiring. We're looking at places like that and trying to see whether we can replicate some of the thinking and some of the advances that they've made. But yeah, that was fantastic. Thank you, Sydney. I'm from Hackney Wick, which is nestled between the Olympic Park and Victoria Park, and Mabley Green to the north. We have 2 local authorities in our boundary line, and we have the LLDC, which is the sort of development corporation for the area. And essentially, the area is undergoing quite sort of significant change in terms of development and the amount of sort of housing that's being built. I'm a local resident and I represent the Development Trust. Our whole mission is about, I'm just trying to move it on. It's not moving on, that's frustrating. Here we are. Our whole mission is about carving out space for the community to be held by the community in the trust for the long term. So we have lots of private development here, we have public sector ownership, but there is no kind of community owned spaces, and we think that's really important for kind of healthy neighbourhoods to thrive. And in sort of undertaking that mission, we work really closely with the community. There's hundreds of different groups that are working here: youth groups, faith groups, older people's groups, businesses. There's a number of large university institutions here, and as well as local authorities. And our role is really to try and bring all of those perspectives together and try to develop where we think there might be uses for spaces that we want to hold. So we came up with, having done a whole load of engagement with all of those different groups, we came up with a kind of reimagined high street area, if you like. And this has kind of been prompted by the GLA's support of our mission to look at the high street in a different way and say, what does it look like for the 21st century, and what, you know, coming out of COVID, what do we need here? And while I would say that you know, there are different priorities for different groups. If you talk to older people, they'll talk about fuel poverty. If you talk to businesses, they're thinking about the bottom line, and those things obviously quite difficult to pull together. But what we found was there was a big commonality and agreement around the environment changes that are happening at a macro level, but also at a local level. We're on a floodplain here. We were flooded quite badly very recently, and you know, a lot of businesses and residents were affected by that. So we've done quite a lot of work with those, with all of those different groups to understand what does that mean. And we also talked about how we wanted to come closer as a community and have a better sense of our kind of core neighbourhood, because everything's changing. So the idea was to come up with this high street of circularity, and then we built on that, and we've come up with this idea of actually a sort of circular high street, a circular hub circular economy hub for the area, which I'll talk a little bit more now. And so essentially, I think the other thing I'll say before I get into the sort of detail of our hub is that the kind of makeup of Hackney, Wick and Fish Island is it's already designated as a creative enterprise zone. So there's a lot of creative industries that are living and working here. But what is also happening is there are a number of organisations that are working on circular economy enterprises. So we have a Library of Things that's already operating here. We have Silo, which is a zero waste restaurant. We have bike freights that work out of Hackney Wick. So there's a number of different businesses that are already starting to work on this area and making a business out of it. And so we felt that, as well as the community saying that this is something they wanted to be involved with, there was also a kind of an emerging business and market that was happening here organically without any kind of intervention. We thought, okay, how can we harness all of that and kind of bring communities together with circular businesses and start to scale some of the interventions that are already taking place and get a bit more coordination together. So with the support of the GLA and the LLDC and our two boroughs, who've all kind of contributed funding or in kind to our idea, we've come up with a kind of an idea around a circular economy hub, which is sort of in three parts, I suppose. The first part is to have a demonstrator project, which takes a disused retail unit and provides a space for kind of pop-up where we can showcase the range of activities around circular economy in a kind of quite visible central place within Hackney Wick. And we can invite businesses in and we can invite local residents in to showcase some of the things that they're doing. This will help us to raise awareness within the local area and start to bring more people into thinking about this. The other part of that is to look at something more substantial and longer term. So we've been working with UCL, who are one of the partners on the park, to look at a much sort of bigger, more industrial sized space where we can actually put a range of businesses together to operate a waste sorting, reusing production of materials, as well as a place where they can showcase their wares and provide sort of education for people. So we're looking with UCL to develop a site which is meanwhile, but with a meanwhile to permanent commitment from them, and where we can show and hold up to 40 businesses on site. And there's something quite interesting about the kind of the hub idea, and I'd be really welcome the hearing from other people on the call about this. I actually feel that we work with currently between 25 and 30 of businesses who want to be part of our hub, and there's a real sense of wanting to share experiences, share learning, work with other organisations about how to scale and replicate in a way that I haven't seen in other sectors. It's less sort of competitive and more collaborative. And I think by bringing people together, we might have some quite interesting outcomes from that. And then the final site is owned by London Borough of Hackney, who've been very supportive of this. They have a whole raft of objectives to be a circular borough, and they're looking to, again, hold space for these sorts of businesses. And we're looking very much at a more sort of interactive space where more local residents can come in and participate and be part of we're calling it a kind of a house of food, but it would also be where you'll be able to taste and make and grow a whole range of different foodstuffs and sort of be a demonstrator again in action. So I'll just show you what that might look like in terms of a kind of visual image. What you'll see here is a kind of cluster of activities all operating on one site. And we like the idea of sort of cross-fertilization and people sharing experiences, but the idea is that you have a range of different uses that support business, that showcase what the circular economy is all about, enable people to participate, whether as customers buying goods or making things or growing things or fixing things, as in the cargo and bike centre. So this is a kind of visual illustration of how we think this can work. We have support, as I said, from the GLA. We have support from LLDC. We are in the business of fundraising for some of these buildings, and we hope to be live, well, certainly with our pilot project in the next couple of months, but then live on the bigger sites at UCL within a year. And you're all invited to come and have a look at it. But I will probably pause there. That comes to the end of my presentation.
Thanks, Alex. And I'll just invite Anka to join to give her presentation about the work in Kensington and Chelsea.
Thank you very much, Victoria, and thank you, Alexandra, for the presentation. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. Bear with me 1 second. Okay. So I'm Anka Giugiu, and I'm the climate change lead for Kensington and Chelsea. I thought before I start telling you about the Notting Hill Future Neighbourhood project and the circular economy initiatives that we're delivering there, to put things into context. So as many other boroughs, or almost all the boroughs in London, the council declared climate emergency in 2019, and we set up 2 ambitious targets, to be a net zero organization by 2030 and to be a carbon neutral borough by 2040. And we've recently developed and launched the Climate Emergency Action Plan, which has 100+ climate change actions. But one of the key things in the action plan was our approach to circular economy. So we have developed a wide range of initiatives, from reducing waste and increasing recycling, to reducing food waste, to developing a Green Skills Academy, an environmental charter for businesses and schools, working on a sustainable procurement and supply chain, which is quite crucial. So how do we make sure that we embed environmental clauses and circular economy clauses into all the major contracts and into the suppliers, implement different hubs like the Library of Things or Repair and Reuse, and we've delivered a number of these across the borough already. And then offering and working more with the key organizations and businesses in the borough to offer sustainability and circular economy support. And this is still we're in the process of developing that. And then also we worked a lot on the planning side of things. So we've developed a greening supplementary planning guidance that now, the thing that actually goes a bit beyond the London plan is that we're encouraging all major developers to submit a circular economy statement. Now, to put things into context, we wanted to pilot and see how we can actually create a sustainable and more holistic neighborhood that has circular economy embedded, that and supports the community as well. So we've applied for the Future Neighbourhoods 2030 funding that was initiated by the Mayor of London, and we were successful together with Camden. We were one of the 2 future neighbourhoods. So Kensington and Chelsea has decided to on a Notting Hill, which is a ward in North Kensington. It has 8,000+ residents. The reason why we've decided on the area, because it meets the criteria from the GLA, but also because it's an area with high deprivation. It's an area in a deficiency in access to nature. It has air pollution problems, climate risk. It was affected by flooding in last summer. These future neighbourhoods, the vision that we have is to become one of the UK's largest eco-neighbourhood and to put a green recovery at the heart of the Grenfell recovery and COVID-19 recovery. So for those of you who don't know, the Future Neighbourhoods funding was, as I mentioned, launched by the Mayor, and it was part of their Green New Deal mission. And the objectives of this is to improve London's natural environment, so looking at improving air quality and tackling climate change, but also to incentivize and to promote a green economy, to prioritize intervention that will tackle inequalities and health inequalities. So it's a very much holistic approach. So how do we address the social injustices and, we move to a just transition? And then how do we engage Londoners and businesses in becoming a greener city? So when we submitted this, the application, we've split our project into 5 themes. So the 5 themes that we are actually concentrating on and which are aligned with the GLA's objectives are fabric first, and I won't go too much into the detail, but it's more around retrofitting homes, powering up to the people, which is more around creating a decarbonized and local energy, creating a cleaner and healthier Nottingdale, which is around air quality and active travel initiatives and sustainable transport, building a green recovery, which is around greening, creating a resilient and green neighborhood. And then the 5th one, which in a way intersects all the others, is this creating green jobs and skills through a circular economy. And for this project, we have a wide range of partners, from local partners like schools, West Wales Trust, charities, to more nationalized or regional partners like ReLondon, Energy Gardens, Library of Things. And basically what we have been given funding to do is to develop a vision for Nottingdale, an environmentally sustainable vision, and then to deliver 30+ projects. And 7 out of these projects are related to circular economy. So what we are trying to do now is to pilot in a concrete neighborhood, how can we actually embed circular economy, and how can actually this be supporting residents and benefiting residents. So what we've decided and the initiatives that we are at the moment delivering are a wide range, from pop-up repair shops, different community spaces, supporting local organizations to offering a school uniform swapping service, but it's also more around reusing, and food banks, delivering youth training, paid youth training for young people between 16 and 19, which includes environmental themes, but also circular economy themes. Developing a Green Skills Academy, but that also has a circular economy trainings embedded into that, and creating these hubs. One of them is a Library of Things, and then other repair and reuse hubs. We're also offering holistic and actually building a support for local businesses, and we're in the process of organizing greener living events, again, that will have circular economy at the core of it. So we have the total cost of our project is 3.1 million. We receive funding from the GLA around 1.4, that's the grant, and then we're match funding 1.6. And the actual circular economy initiatives for this phase are around 200K. So we have concrete funding, but we also, as I mentioned, we are developing a vision for Nottingdale that will help us in a way understand how the community sees circular economy and how they actually want to benefit from it. The delivery of the project is, it started this year and is till March 23 when the funding needs to be spent, but there will be a phase 2 it will be a phase 2. So we will have funding for another maybe 2 years to continue delivery. But the whole idea is how can we actually create a legacy and a vision that will last, it's a long lasting, that it's actually looking for the future. So we're creating this 2030 vision. So in terms of the outcomes and what we're hoping to achieve from this project is to encourage and create new jobs, to have new skills qualifications, to engage residents in accessing, sharing and repairing initiatives. We're ambitious and we're aiming to deliver 15 circular economy workshops. We're preparing different sharing initiatives and repairs workshops as well, helping businesses, as I mentioned, and helping creating these green apprenticeships roles and low carbon enterprises. Now, I won't go too much into the details, but actually what we're already doing and some of the current initiatives that we actually learned from that we've done so far in North Ken and in Notting Hill are, clothes swap events, electrical repair events, food waste, reusable nappies events. We've done a lot of training around carbon literacy for staff, and now we're rolling it out to residents and contractors, and paid training opportunities. What we've noticed is, and what we're trying to do is, how can we actually, so to give you a concrete example, we have been doing this repair initiatives every month in one location in a community center, and they have been extremely well received. But what we're trying to do is to identify local residents. So for example, we had some residents coming forward who are electricians or who have the expertise that could actually start helping to support these initiatives. But then also we're trying to actually identify residents who would be interested in skilling themselves to be able to actually drive these initiatives forward. I will stop here, but I'm happy to discuss about the project. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Anka, for that final presentation. We've got some great questions coming through, so I'll go to those now and I'll direct them out. So yeah, thank you also to Cindy and Alex for their presentation. So first of all, we've got 2 questions, I think, for Alex, both from Robert. I'm going to group these. I think it's a bit easier to do it this way. So first one from Robert for you, Alex. Robert would be interested to know how the Heston project or the Heston pilot will be funded and when it ends. And as a follow-up, he's interested to know what measure you'll be using to train electrical repairers and looking at some standard way to actually do that. So first of all, how will the Heston pilot be funded and when does the funding end?
I'm not sure if I don't understand the reference to Heston, because I'm not sure if that was a...
Sorry for Cindy. Sorry, Alex.
Yeah, I think it is for Cindy. Yeah, cool.
Sorry, yes.
Hi, sorry. The question was, how will it be funded moving forward after we've... Yeah.
Yes.
So the plan is to create interventions that will be delivered by the community, so not requiring resources, financial resources afterwards. But of course, there's going to be some rental of spaces, and we'll need to look at that and how we can use our own assets, corporate assets, to deliver those programs and make sure that those buildings are accessible and affordable for community group use.
Fantastic, thank you. And links around to for training and these sort of standards that will be looking to applied. How are you looking to go about that, Cindy, with the Heston project?
For the Heston project,
yes.
So obviously we'll need to get community involved that are already showing those skills or have those skills. So it's really important that the trainers become the trainer. So yeah, we're looking at very much a community focused base, but we do also need to look at our own internal skills and our own facility management team and about how they can share that skill set. Of course, health and safety will be key on everything we do, and we need to make sure that if we're training and upskilling people, that there's a proper program in place, and certification is part of that as well.
Thank you. And then Robert's helpfully suggested you may be able to help in that area. So please do, you obviously connect after the workshop. I see Anchor's already followed up with that interest as well. So thank you, Robert, for that. Second one's from Mooley. In fact, she's actually already connected with Alex, and Alex has come back. Mooley is talking about she's setting up and running a circular startup program, and actually has involved 8 participants from Hackney. So already some good opportunities to synergize there. So good to see Mooley and Alex. We'll be catching up on that afterwards. Next question is from Alan. The circular economy depends on everyone buying into the idea. What are your plans on communicating the principles and the benefits of the circular economy to your community? So Alex, I might come back to you on this one, as your project is one of the early community ones. So how are you really getting the community involved and communicating the benefits of the circular economy to community partners?
Yeah, well, we're doing quite a lot of work with young people, actually, and young people. I mean, there's been quite a lot of interest in this, and how we've managed to kind of reach people is by kind of understanding a little bit about what's going on in their world first, and then thinking about how some of what we're talking about could help them with the challenges that they face. So, for example, a lot of young people in our area talk about not having enough kind of money for stuff. The thought of buying, flashy new trainers or, new clothes is really actually kind of, it just doesn't happen. And so actually a lot of them were talking about how they want to, make their own clothes, and they do, some of them do it already, for example, but actually taking that a little bit further. So could we do something where we're making our own clothes, we're coming together and sharing experience and knowledge exchange, and also trying to take that out to the market and try and make money. So it's the way in which we're trying to tackle this is to understand what's happening for each individual kind of cohort of people. And okay, you've got to group people a little bit and understand what's going on for them and what matters to them, and then thinking about what's going to be of most interest. Because I think my experience so far has been that when we just sort of talk about, kind of eco-warrior language, it just turns people off. But if you talk about poverty, if you talk about housing, if you talk about jobs, if you talk about those things, actually can connect with people when they think maybe the circular economy is not highest on their priority, but actually they would engage on that. And we've done some other work with some of our older population who are worried about energy bills, and actually running a campaign with Citizens UK to help people to move energy suppliers. So that matters to that cohort of people, and that is helping them, and they can see benefit straight away. So the way we're trying to tackle it is to go in at the point at which people, their interest, rather than trying to do a lot of broadcasting about you've got to do this, it's good for the planet, you've got to do, because I think people don't know where to start, and that's a bit of a challenge. And when we take the same approach with businesses, so for example, we're working with the coffee bars in Hackney Wick, of which there are loads, and we're saying, you already have to put your coffee waste into a different bin. Can we take that off your hands instead of paying a commercial waste disposer? Can we take that off your hands, and can we grow mushrooms? And then we can present that in our pop-up shop. This is what we're doing. And so it's little things like that is kind of how we're trying to do it. And then hopefully we make that as visible as we can to people, and it'll start to spread out, and that will start to build people's awareness and interest and want to engage in it. So that's kind of how we're going to do it. And I think the other thing we will do is some practical hands-on workshopy type things. And I loved the RBKC examples. I thought, I'm going to steal some of those, because I think that, just trying to get people to actually kind of do it and see the benefit of them, for fixing their kit and stuff like that. I think that's the way to do it.
Fantastic. Thanks, Alice. I think, yeah, absolutely. This sort of session is about stealing or sharing ideas. Indeed, and your point about mainstreaming the circular economy, finding something that people can hook on to really sort of get the message across is really important. Okay, we've got time for about two, maybe three more questions. We've got one from an anonymous person. So all these current projects are great. We'd be interested to know how previous projects or initiatives have fared, or if learnings were taken to inform current projects. So Anke, I might go to you with this one, with the work that you've done in developing the work in RBKC. How you talked a bit about some of the learnings, but how are you looking to sort of take forward some of those learnings to inform other projects, either within the borough or indeed perhaps across other local authority areas or communities?
Thank you, Doug. Yeah, that's a very good question. So I think that's why I try to put things into context. So although we are fortunate enough, because we are one of the two boroughs that actually got funding to deliver concrete projects in Nottingdale, we are looking at the circular economy as part of the climate emergency response. So there were already projects going on before we applied for this funding. As I mentioned, some of the reuse and repair, some of the food waste and initiatives. And then what we try to do is to learn from those when we applied for the funding. So we took some of the learnings. We knew some of where the interest or the demand was from the community as well. And this is how we formed, in a way, the first application. But to be honest, it's still early stages. And I think what the good thing about the Future Neighbourhoods, the Nottingdale project, is that a lot of these projects and the vision is co-designed with residents. So we're doing an in-depth engagement with residents to develop this vision that will include, as part of the circular economy, as other themes. So the idea is that we will be learning from those projects. We're quantifying the outcomes, because with every funding it comes a lot of monitoring and reporting. So we actually concretely monitor the outcomes of the projects. And then starting from that, we are going to deliver and come up with other ones. The whole idea about the Future Neighbourhood and Nottingdale is that it's replicable. So it's not going to be just in Nottingdale. The whole, the GLA is very keen that becomes, us and Camden become like models for how these eco-neighbourhoods are actually built, and they can be shared with other local authorities, but also for us in Kensington and Chelsea is how do we actually extend this. So that's why we're not looking only at small projects, is how do we build a Green Skills Academy, for example? How do we link all these projects? And I think for me, the key thing is how do we make sure that, and somebody actually said it, we talk about a lot of principles, but when we talk about climate change and even circular economy, we need to really speak in things that are tangible for residents. So how do we actually get their ideas as part of this engagement and making it in tangible projects, but delivering them in partnership with them? And I think the key thing is is also involving residents in delivering these projects, from upskilling them and making sure that they are part of that.
Okay, great. Thanks, Anke. Okay, Alex, I just see your hand up. Do you want to come in on that, and then we'll close the Q&A? Yeah. But I'll encourage, obviously, the speakers to reply in the actual Q&A chat as well to respond to those questions we haven't had time to answer.
Thanks, Doug. Very
Alex,
quickly. Yeah, very, very quickly. I was just going to add one more thing, which is in my experience, is there's a lot of businesses that are operating enterprises in this space, and they are innovating and learning all the time. And I think you could do better than to just get in contact with ReLondon, who know all of these businesses, and say, look, I'm really interested in food waste. Who's working on that? Enterprising, and they'll tell you kind of what's been working and what they've learned and where it's gone wrong and what to think about, because that has been such an experience for us. And we've got these 40 odd partners who are all working in circular economy, and they're all businesses, and they're innovating all the time, and they're sharing the learnings with us so that we don't misstep. And I think that I would give that as my top tip.
Fantastic. Okay, thanks, Alex, and thank you all for your questions. Loads still coming through. We will try to get responses to you through the Q&A chat box, so keep an eye on that. Okay, I'm now going to move to the second part of the session. We've got two local authorities to talk about what they're doing in the circular economy space by introducing circular economy through their own operations. We've first got George Brown from the London Borough of Bromley. George works in the carbon management team there, and he has developed a very innovative and exciting tool to help embed circularity through the procurement process. I'll leave it there, George, so don't steal any more of your thunder, but I'll pass over to you now. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug, and good afternoon, Afternoon, everybody. Firstly, just apologies. I do have quite bad internet, so if I unexpectedly drop out, it's not me being rude. So yeah, next slide, please, Doug. So I'm going to talk to you about a few things that we've got going on internally at Bromley Council. I guess with 2 points, group recovery working group and our staff literacy training, I guess is more about capacity building, about what is the circular economy and how we can actually embed those principles and those practices internally across the organisation. And the next two are more about actual circular economy projects and products that we've got going. The most important one, I guess, being the procurement toolkit. So next slide, please, Doug. So we've set up a green recovery working group, and this was through the dark days of the pandemic and the whole sort of government's agenda to build back better. Sort of really struck a chime with our members and politicians at Bromley. So what we decided was this is actually a really good opportunity to rethink our services. And not only how we can sort of save cost efficiency measures, but also actually the wider environmental discussion that's now actually really starting to pick up pace across the country. So in response both to the financial and environmental pressures, we did think it was a really good time to start refocusing and rethinking about how we can deliver our services. We've brought our carbon net zero carbon target forward by 2 years. So previously it was 2029, but now it's 2027, and that's our organizational emissions. So this green recovery working group was we saw as actually a good opportunity to be able to deliver against a key policy that the carbon management team is responsible for, whilst also bearing in mind that how do we reimagine our services to deliver circular economy across the borough, as well as it just being our organizational emissions. So it was really important actually when to actually think about who we wanted to be at this board meeting, at the working group. And personally speaking, I thought it was quite interesting that we got director level and assistant directors across all the departments and services represented. So it was quite senior leadership team level. It was chaired by a chief executive for the first few meetings. And that was basically to sort of provide the assurance that we need to take it very seriously, all of these themes, but also actually that it's got that top level representation that can actually affect change within their own departments and services. So it is about bringing all these sort of high-level senior leadership team together to discuss about how their services and departments can decarbonise through their own lens, but also when delivering the services across the borough, how that can be delivering decarbonisation. All of this is, despite not having a net zero target for the borough, is also trying to sort of transition and make the borough ready for a net zero transition and meeting our 2050 national obligations as well. So we really did think that although this is not specifically focused on circular economy, it's a really good way to organise the councils in terms of thinking about growing, building back better, getting everybody around the table to discuss things about decarbonisation and achieving a net zero policies, organisational or borough-wide. And a key part of that was kept coming out of it was that it was a really good opportunity to embed the circular economy across these departments and actually sort of raise awareness just from the carbon management team across to all these other departments. So what we've done is with the Green Recovery Group is we structured it around the London Council's 7 climate priorities, and we've had subgroups from that. And there are loads and loads of actions inside these subgroups, and there's multi-departmental input across within these subgroups as well. So strategically thinking, it's really holistic, we think, and it's got all the sort of level of involvement from that top senior level team to actually bring it down and cascade it down to the employees below. So we really did think that this is a really good way to focus people around not just building back better, but a really good opportunity to embed circular economy at that senior leadership level, and then it can trickle down and cascade to lower levels. Next slide, please, Doug. So one of the key actions that did come out of the Green Recovery Working Group economy staff literacy training. So it became start actually explaining some of the business models about the circular economy. Obviously they do know and they've been exposed to some of those business models before. But in terms of actually formalizing circular economy training, we thought it was a really good idea to take ReLondon up on their offer about how we can actually do some sort of a real good sort of tangible workshops with our, and it did actually tease out a lot of opportunities about how people can just rethink about their services. Usually when you're running a service for so long, you end up getting sort of tunnel vision. And partly what the Green Recovery Working Group done is actually expose other people and break that siloed approach across the council. But when we actually started doing this process with ReLondon, a lot of people started coming out with different ideas of thinking about how they can deliver their services. So we thought that was a really, really productive lesson. With the workshops, I would highly recommend if people are on the fence about thinking of doing them. The staff feedback to the carbon management team and to ReLondon was fantastic. And we're looking to actually continue with some of that circular economy training. So we were really happy with the staff literacy training, and it's a really good sort of fundamental basis to be able to then start communicating and building that language and culture around the circular economy. At the moment, we're still very much in a transition period, but eventually, obviously, the aim is to people to speak circular economy like it's a second language. And again, I think it was important to know, obviously, being a local council, is that the overarching principles for most people at this workshop, while that circular economy must demonstrate the financial incentives as well as all the social and environmental benefits that it brings as well. Next slide, please, Doug. So this toolkit has been on trial for a couple of years now. It's been refined and tweaked and further refined, and basically it's a circular procurement toolkit. It's currently on Excel, but there's discussions going on about how we may want to digitize it and make it a little bit more user-friendly. But the principal thing for this toolkit is that it's for local authority professionals who need to go out to tender. So they may be leading on the tender, or may eventually be the service manager who was responsible for the contract. Most of the time it's for people that are not really that au fait with ideas of sustainability, or even more niche, the circular economy. So it's meant to be, the target audience is meant to be those sorts of people that maybe want to put things into their about sustainability into their contracts, but they don't know how. In some regards, and Bromley, we've recently done this, is that there is a requirement now whenever we go out to tender to mention things about socio-environmental statement. So it does need to be taken into account that every council has their own procurement processes, but broadly and largely we all, by nature of just being at this workshop, considering the same ideas. So we're really confident that it can actually be rolled out to other councils. Again, the objectives, obviously, it's meant to be user-friendly, easy and expedient. Procurement, the tender process is long enough for everybody as it is. We don't want to add hours and hours of extra work for people who may not really be inclined to want to do this, especially if they feel obligated to write this statement for their tender document. So it's meant to be light touch. It takes about 10 minutes, but obviously I'm quite au fait with it, so it may take some first-time users a little bit longer. But again, it's to help assist those people who don't know what circular economy is and broader the sustainability ideas. And the output's actually meant to help embed circular economy ideas into contracts. And the way this happens is the toolkit can kick out some suggested outputs. This includes monitoring metrics, specification wording, KPIs, and also statements within the quality questions as well. And this whole process is actually meant to sort of enrich what could be sort of framework documentation or tender documentation, or if you're writing from scratch, a whole chapter on sustainability. And this is meant to tease out all the way through the process those suppliers or contractors with such strong sustainability credentials, but more specifically, those are coming up forward with circular economy ideas. And there are several categories across the toolkit. There's about 30 odd all in total, and they're divided up between environmental and social value categories. Next slide, please, Doug.
And just one more minute, thanks, George, as well. That's okay.
And the next slide. Thank you. So just to reiterate, based on the toolkit's outputs, based on the inputs that you put in, so the user can put a high, medium, or low value onto each of these items, or the outputs that are required on the recommendation. So, for example, there's emissions, and if the service manager really wants to have a grip on the emissions that are being emitted through the contract, they will place a high value on this output. And because of that difference in high, medium, low in terms of the interest in what you want to mitigate, the toolkit will kick out different wording, so it will be more onerous if you're having a lot of environmental and socio-economic considerations that you put high value to. By contrast, if you put low value on, it's quite dynamic in terms of it's a broad template, which we're trying to test on multiple and different types of contracts, so then we can have burden, I guess, on these different outputs. So the categories that kick out these sort of stuff is the specification wording, award questions, the monetary metrics, and it also teases out the 5 circular economy business models sponsored by the Elephant MacArthur Foundation, and that's basically embedded within the process. Again, this is because if we start telling people about these 5 CE business models, then it might actually be a bit overwhelming for them. So that's tucked away in the background, but nonetheless, there's descriptions about opportunities within the 5 CE business models. Next slide, please, Doug. And this is basically just some screenshots of the toolkit. It's on Excel, as I said, at the moment, and there's buttons and whatnot to use. And you're very much invited to sort of put in your own thoughts into this stuff, and then the toolkit will take them into account and then kick out a Word report. Next slide, please, Doug. And this is the Word report. So the idea for the reason why we want the Excel input to then migrate to the Word report is because it's for you guys to then cut and paste what you want and then to write over it. And again, it's meant to be that usefulness between thinking about you want to do something about sustainability to your contract to then having those outputs where you can cut and paste into your tender documentation for review by your peers. And there is a video tutorial I want to. Next slide, please, Doug.
So George, you just look to finish up now, please. Just running a bit short on time. Thank you.
Sorry, apologies. So
okay.
Yeah, we are currently trialing this on the PV system, and we'll be sharing those results shortly. So yeah, we're midway through the tender at the moment. So very looking forward to the site to be sharing that. Last slide, please, Doug. Next steps, we're just going to keep refining the toolkit, and we're going to try and roll it out to you guys if you're interested. Test it on different types of contracts and categories, I guess, and that way we can build up the resiliency of the toolkit, keep refining, keep testing it, and make it a really good product that we can roll out. And we are going to be trying this on some more upcoming pipeline projects. We've got one being the refurbishing office furniture as we transition to hot desking. So apologies that I run over there, Doug.
That's fine. Thanks, George. And really interesting to
Cheers.
see how the tool is being applied in more than just one contract as well. So thank you for that. Okay, I'm now going to hand over to our final presentation. It's a dual act. We've got Matthew Homer, Waste Strategy Manager from the London Borough of Islington, and also Maryanne Cooper, who is the Inclusive Economy Lead, also from the London Borough of Islington, to talk about their Circular Economy Action Plan and some of their work out in the community with small businesses. Over to you. Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you very much, Doug. Can you just check and you can hear me okay and you can see the slide?
Yes, that's all fine.
Oh, good. Thank you very much. So yeah, a whistle-stop tour through our circular economy action plan, and I'll introduce Maryanne Cooper a little in a few minutes, who's going to talk about one of the particular projects that have emerged from that. So very, very briefly, we all know why the circular economy is important, but one of the things I sort of understood or learned in developing this plan was we have a climate emergency declaration in Islington with a target of being net zero, the carbon zero neutral by 2030, but that is for carbon emissions directly from within the council as a result of electricity consumption in the council, what's known as scope 1 and 2 emissions. Then there's scope 3 emissions, which is all of the emissions outside of the borough as a result of consumption by residents and boroughs in the borough. So from the production, the transportation, and the disposal of goods. And that equates to roughly 2/3 of all of the consumptions that Islington residents and businesses are responsible for, which was not accounted for in our net zero carbon target, and in most other boroughs' net zero carbon targets. Circular economy can help to tackle consumption-related emissions, so not just your scope 1 and 2, but also the external emissions arising outside of the borough, and that's why I think it's one of the reasons why it's really important. We've got I'll skip over this briefly, but our circular economy action plan sits under our reduction and recycling plan, which falls under one of the sort of the work streams of our net zero carbon action plan. But the important thing about this is that in order to deliver the circular economy action plan, we are dependent on teams across the council. All of the different work streams across the council have actions from our action plan. So, you know, this is not an action plan being delivered by the recycling team. It's an action plan being delivered by teams across the council, and that's really important. This is not recycling and reuse plus. I'll pass over. Well, just briefly on that one, the key thing about this is the process we went through in developing the action plan. And again, there was a lot of engagement with teams across the council, and we did also include one of these workshops that was referenced earlier, led by ReLondon, which helped to kind of engage and motivate other teams, team leaders, and help them to understand the concept of circular economy and how the things they're doing can feed into our action plan. And that was really important. So our action plan sets out how we'll apply circular economy principles to our policies and strategies, the actions we're already taking, and the additional actions that we're committing to as a result of the action plan. It focuses on 8 key areas that broadly matches the Vision 2030, our net zero carbon action plan, policies and strategies, buildings, transport, and so on. But there's an awful lot of stuff already going on. A lot of, you know, everyone is doing some circular economy stuff already. They just might not realize it. It might just be the best value thing to do or whatever. So, you know, we were already starting to retrofit some of our refuse collection vehicles as electric RCVs, extending the product life as well as switching to electric. We'd already opened a library of things because we wanted to promote reuse and the sharing economy. So, you know, and we were already managing our digital infrastructure and laptops and so on a lease basis rather than a purchase basis. So, and all these things have been done because there are already drivers around cost and so on that were pushing us to do the right thing. But we wanted to shout about these as part of our strategy. I thought that was really important. But in terms of new commitments, underpinning the whole thing is a commitment to drive circular economy through our policies and for our strategy. So our new local plan has really key policies around circular economy statements and new developments. For example, our progressive procurement policy includes requirements around circular economy, looking for purchasing products as services, for example. The inclusive economy team, of which Maryanne, who'll be speaking in a moment, is part of, will be driving circular economy principles through their engagement work with local businesses. So, you know, from the foundation of good policies and strategies comes action, in my view. So some of those actions, there's a range of them. We'll be managing our council assets based around circular economy principles, around longevity of use, flexible use, community benefit, sustainable refurbishment where required. We'll continue to look at retrofit for our corporate fleet where possible, and we're committed to retrofitting a further 8 diesel refuse collection vehicles into electric RCVs over the next 2 years. We are supporting SMEs with a grant scheme, and we'll celebrate this as part of our business sustainability awards with a special category in circular economy. There's a lot of crossover with waste and recycling, of course, with our reduction and recycling plan. So we do want to do more with materials from our reuse and recycling centre. For example, not just making sure it's sent off from recycling, but can it be sent more locally for recycling? Can it be sent more locally for reuse? Are there local businesses who can benefit from that material so that it's, you know, it's more sustainable, and we're supporting local businesses in Islington and nearby as well? We want to develop more library of things, sharing opportunities, maker spaces, and we'll be delivering more repair cafes starting at 3 o'clock this afternoon, when we have a repair cafe happening in the Angel Town Centre this afternoon in Islington. And I'll be trying to dash off to that after this. So, and we also offer, I mean, just that last point I think is quite useful. Islington already has a range of adult education opportunities, and they're very keen to integrate circular economy training into that, be it practical skills like electrical repair, can you fix your electrical items or repair clothes, through to more kind of high level theoretical kind of training on circular economy principles. And I think there's a great opportunity there. Next steps, the key thing here is that we are keeping this plan live. We want to republish it in 2 years' time. We want to try and build in performance indicators that are kind of lacking in the current plan. How do you measure circularity is a really tricky one for me. You can measure recycling rate, you weigh what you're recycling and turn it into a percentage. How do you measure circularity? It's a bit of a conundrum. And so we want to try and focus on that and republish the plan with actions that have been driven through as part of our net zero carbon overarching program. So that's a real kind of whistle-stop tour of the Circular Economy Action Plan. One of the key initiatives in there is the Circular Economy Grant Scheme. And at this point, Maryanne, I'll hand over to you.
Okie doke. Thanks, Matthew, and thanks to everyone else who has presented previously. So, okay, Matthew, do you want to go to the next slide? So just as an introduction, I'm Maryanne. I'm a senior local economies officer for Islington Council. I look after the area of Bun Hill, which is kind of like the Old Street area specifically. So that involves engaging with businesses, linking people up with kind of like initiatives that will help them, and residents, businesses, things like that. And for the past 9 months or so, I've also had the title of grant manager for the Circular Economy Grant Scheme added to my portfolio as well. So just a bit of background, the Circular Economy Grant Scheme was part of our third and final tranche of funding that came through from central government as part of kind of the COVID recovery funding for local businesses. The first 2 rounds of the funding were defrayed to businesses across 2020 and 21, and as everyone probably knows in this meeting, it was very much kind of emergency, like very urgent, businesses just needed money. So for the third round of funding, we decided to split it up into different themes, and we decided on 14 different business recovery programs in alignment with the aims of our strategic plan. So some of those included things around progressive procurement, around market development, because our markets had taken a big hit with COVID, and there were some other environmental themes, for example, a cargo bike scheme, and also the promotion for Black and minority ethnic owned businesses as well. And then under the environmental theme, we decided to put some money together for a circular economy business grant. So this is kind of like building on what we'd already introduced in our zero carbon strategy from 2019. So as with other boroughs, we declared a climate emergency in 2019. We mentioned circular economy, we kind of like laid out a commitment in that, and then last year, Matthew and his team developed a circular economy action plan. So the grant scheme was really building on those and just seeing where we could go with it. Okay, next slide, please, Matthew. Okay, so this is a really boring slide, so I'm really sorry, everyone, but we thought it was important to just kind of touch on it, just so you guys know about the process that we went through to deliver the grant scheme. So we wanted a delivery partner, kind of like experts in the field, to deliver it with us, because well, they might just be a bit better placed than us. So we did our market research. We decided on a few different organisations that we'd like to invite to express their interest. So we went through that process. They came back and expressed their interest formally, and so then we put a tender together. It was actually a request for quotes, but for all intents and purposes, it was a tender. And we put that out to 3 organisations. Excuse me. 2 organisations came back to us with tender responses. which were both really, really good. But we went with ReLondon in the end, and they had, you know, a very thorough plan. They even like tweaked it for us and, you know, suggested like some better things about how we could carry things out better, and yeah, and a fair cost as well. So yeah, so we went through that formal process. Okay, next slide. And kind of just went about partnering to deliver it. So the biggest thing is obviously kind of the business engagement. So we mapped out all the challenges. The first one, which is actually the bottom one here in the first list of bullet points, was that not too many people actually are aware of what the circular economy is. So we thought there's going to have to be a big education piece around that. So we kind of promoted it through our social media. We went out and spoke to businesses, and ReLondon helpfully shared some, did like a masterclass through our expression of interest phase. Some other challenges were that it was lockdown. When we launched the expression of interest phase, we've actually just gone into lockdown 3 or 4. I can't remember which one it was this now, but it was the Omicron lockdown. So it all obviously happened very quickly around last Christmas, and then January, we were all advised to work from home, and businesses were just coming up again, you know, against the same challenges that they just started recovering from. You know, in the previous few months. So obviously the businesses had bigger priorities. They had the minds on other things. And also we had the 13 other grant programs and business recovery programs running at the same time. So there's a lot going on. So we really had to think about how we can get our message across and get the word out about the circular economy grant scheme. So we came across these challenges.
Thanks, Maryanne.
Okay, I'll hurry up. So we overcame these challenges by we utilised as many council communication channels as humanly possible. So that included obviously the Islington Beast Borough Council main channels, but also we had a business bulletin that went out to 6,000 businesses. We have like the Islington Sustainable Energy Partnership newsletter. I think, you know, through all those channels, we worked out that we were reaching over 10,000 local businesses, and obviously there would have been some doubling up there, but there's a really good handful there. And ReLondon obviously did their own social media posts as well and put it on their own newsletters. But the biggest thing really, which was kind of like the least effort but most high impact, was we utilised the rest of my team. So as a local economies officer, I go around my area in Islington and I speak to businesses face to face, you know, just say, I'm here, I'm your advocate for any problems you have, whatever it is. I'll go back to the council, try and resolve it, or link you in with like other initiatives or partnerships that we've got going on. So we really built on those relationships that my team had. So we sent out, and ReLondon handily produced these business cards that you can see here on the right. So it's just business card side, like basic information, apply for 5 or 10k grants. There's a QR code that goes straight to the application form. And then this was really building on us going in, visiting businesses face to face, having a conversation with them and engaging directly with them about the circular economy. So telling them what it is, what kinds of things they can do, how they can save waste, why it's important. And these are just 5-minute conversations or 2-minute conversations in each business that really went far, really. So yeah, so as we said, you know, there was a massive education piece. So we weren't really expecting that many applications. You know, we thought that maybe people might not see kind of like, you know, the education piece through. We thought like they might read a little bit about it, but not really relate to it. So we had, you know, I think 24. We had enough money for 24 grants, and maybe we were expecting about as many grants and applications to come through. Actually, in the end, we got 71 applications through for the scheme, which was above and beyond anything that we had expected. We awarded 24 of these, so 5 and 10k grants to 24 local businesses. 52% of them were businesses owned by Black, Asian and other minority ethnic groups, 49% were female-led, and 15% were led by business owners with a disability. So we were really, really pleased with kind of like the representation and the diversity of our business owners and population in Islington. Okey-doke.
Okay, just
yeah, I'll take some more seconds if that's okay. Yeah, and then this is just kind of like a representation of the different sectors as well. So we have a big textile, like historically we have a big textile and rag industry in Islington, so we still do as well. So we really want to build on that. We've got a lot of hospitality as well, so we really want to build on that, and same with electricals. So we're really pleased with those results. And then some other kind of like random ones with jewellery design, theatre set design, bike repair, and retail such as bookshop and toy shop. Okay. And then this is just kind of the businesses that have come through. So we really wanted a mix between like kind of like online, digital ones, retail, and we wanted ones that maybe served certain sections of Islington against other sections of Islington. So we think we got a really, really good mix there. Okay. Next one. Where we're at now, so we're continuing our engagement with all the awardees, and we're working in partnership with ReLondon to do that. So just this Friday, just gone, we did a business breakfast networking meeting. We've done online things before. So we're really creating a network and community of business owners who are taking the circular economy initiative forward in Islington. And we're going to continue that over the next 6 months or 4 months now. Okay, and then next.
Sorry, Maryanne, I need to stop you there. Sorry, because we are.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Time. I hope it's not nice of them to sort of cut short presentations. Lots of good content there.
Yeah,
but,
that's it.
Please do follow up with Maryanne after. We've got time for a couple of questions, and we'll look to wrap up. So just first of all, I think one we've got through from Andrew Hager. I'm going to direct this to you, Matthew, in terms of your journey to developing your circular economy action plan. What have been the challenges in getting sign up across your organisations or your directorates for circular economy action? And I suppose we can add to that, how have you overcome some of those challenges?
I'll put my video on. Sorry. I've sort of found overall that people have been quite receptive to it. I think the challenge is having the time to spend engaging with people on this. I think there's a lot of people, I mean, in Islington, I think the culture is very much around doing the right thing, being innovative, but also sort of, you know, climate change and sustainability is up there anyway. And some people, most people were on board with the kind of principles about this, although most people hadn't really heard of the term circular economy. So, you know, most of my conversations started with, okay, I want to talk to you about circular economy. Shall I explain to you what I mean by that? And most people wanted that. And then when I was able to explain it, they get it. It's not a particularly difficult concept. So I think explaining that concept, having the time, you know, we don't have a dedicated circular economy team, it's me. And that isn't my day job. So yeah, does that help?
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Matthew. That's a good response. And just for one following up from Andrew, I think I'm going to direct this to you, George, on measuring circularity. What are your sort of initial thoughts on how you go about this? Perhaps you could just give a couple of examples of the sort of indicators that you're using through your procurement tool to measure and report on circularity.
So is that for me, Doug?
Sorry for George. You're still with us.
You.
See, George, are you still with us? Okay, we may have lost George, but I can have a crack at that, Andrew. I know that you're working on some of this work as well in West London, but the way we're trying to sort of measure circularity is obviously it means different things to different people. Through some of the work we're doing with our training, we're looking at sort of cultural indicators, like what are the departments are now taking an interest more in circularity. what are the opportunities for the economic development team? We've heard Maryanne talk about some of the opportunities to leverage and involve small businesses to sort of understand what circularity is, and then looking at some of the other traditional metrics around waste reduction, recycling, and reuse as well. And I think it all very much depends on the local authority. We've heard Matthew as well talk about trying to get policies into the local plan. That's almost like an indication of the cultural change that the local authority is taking, and also through the procurement processes. So I think, yeah, there's no sort of clean set off the shelf that you can take for measuring circularity, but obviously aware of the work that you're doing in West London. It'll be good to share some of that work as well. Thank you. Okay, just got one more question from Vanessa that's come through. It's for George as well, so I'll take this unless George is back with us. How do I get more information about the procurement toolkit for Bromley? We are working with George to further test and refine the toolkit on other contracts, and the idea is once we've got that toolkit a bit better refined, we're looking to find other boroughs who might be interested to apply in their processes. So Vanessa, I'll take down your interest and look to get back to you once we've got to that stage. Thank you. Okay, I believe that's all the questions in the Q&A. So I'm just going to do a quick final couple of slides before I hand back to Victoria to close the session. So you've heard, I hope you've really enjoyed the examples you've heard around how local authorities and community groups have applied the circular economy. We've been very fortunate to work with the speakers and the organisations that you've heard from in some shape or form as enablers, really, to help them, as I say, scope and deliver some of their action and their activities. The way we work is we've worked with local authorities for a long time now, and we sort of have three sort of areas of work that we help, particularly around helping to embed and apply the circular economy and to help reduce and improve recycling rates. And we've got a huge amount of tools and resources available online. We work with small businesses, and you heard about from Maryanne how that work has been carried out to help local businesses better understand and apply the circular economy into everything that they do. And also we do a huge amount of citizen engagement to awaken and inspire the circular citizen, and lots of collateral there that is available through our website. We also have a training academy, and Matthew touched on this as well. We've worked with 7 local authorities now to deliver our core module, our practical module, which is really to build a capacity and to help develop an action plan for local authorities. And we are working with other local authorities outside of the UK, outside of London as well. So we're very much there to help. We want to see all this good work come to fruition, and to showcase really good activity and to encourage that sharing of more information and good practice. So please do get in touch if you have any projects in the space. We'd very much love to work with you as well. Okay, thank you. I'll hand back to Victoria to share her final reflections and to close. Thanks, Victoria.
Well, thanks, Doug. I don't know about everybody else, but I thought that was a really fantastic session. And I hope you all found it informative, that you're able to take something away from today. I think the diversity of thinking and approach, whether you think about it from a circular economy neighbourhood, a street, an estate, I think there's lots in that we can all take away into our own different organisations. And I think some of the work that the teams have been doing around their own organisation, whether it's training, toolkits, the grant scheme, or how you embed principles more broadly. So I hope everyone is able to take something away from the work that we've showcased today. And I'd just like to wrap up by thanking all of the speakers. So thank you, Cindy, Alexandra, Anka, George, Matthew, and Maryanne. I'd also like to thank ReLondon and Doug and the team, the technical team sat behind, making sure today went smoothly. And for all of you attending and for asking some really fantastic questions. Absolutely, if there's any opportunity to share learning, work together more to help us all really advance our work on circular economy, then that's always going to be a really positive thing. So I don't have anything more to say. I have the pleasure of giving people 5 minutes of their time back. So Doug, anything you want to say in final reflections?
No, that's fine. Thanks, Victoria. Really good session. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.